Inside a stone pillar, in a beer hall in Munich, a clock is ticking. Nobody in the building can hear it. It is the 8th of November, 1939. Behind a hidden door, carved by hand into the column behind the speaker's platform, sits a bomb, and 2 clock movements, wired to fire at exactly 9:20 tonight. At 9:20, Adolf Hitler is supposed to be standing at that platform 3 feet away in the middle of a speech. The man who built it is already gone, on a train for the Swiss border. And he has done everything right. 35 nights of work. A timer set 3 days ahead. A device so well hidden it will not be found. By every calculation he has made, Adolf Hitler has less than an hour to live. He is wrong. Not because his bomb fails. It will explode at exactly 9:20, precisely where he placed it. He is wrong because tonight, of all nights, Hitler is going to leave the room 13 minutes early. And the man who came closer than almost anyone to ending the Second World War before it began is one most people have never heard of. His name was Johann Georg Elser, and nothing on paper said assassin. He was a carpenter from a small town in southern Germany. Quiet, skilled with his hands. Not a soldier, not a politician, not part of any resistance network or foreign plot. That is the single most important fact in the story. He acted completely alone. Elser had watched Germany change through the 30s and reached one unshakable conclusion: that Hitler was dragging the country toward a catastrophic war, and ordinary people would pay for it in the millions. As he later told his interrogators, conditions in Germany could only be improved by removing the leadership. Hitler, Goering, Goebbels. The men at the top. So a carpenter with no training, no accomplices, and no support of any kind decided to kill the most protected man in Europe by himself. And the astonishing thing is how close he came. Before we go inside that beer hall, one quick thing. Everything in this story is documented, from Elser's own Gestapo interrogation, from German resistance archives, from the historians who have spent decades reconstructing exactly what he did. None of it is invented. If that is the history you want, subscribe and hit the like button. It takes 1 second, and it is the clearest way to put a forgotten story like this in front of the next person. Now, how one man turned a beer hall into a trap. Elser chose his moment with a craftsman's precision. Every year, on the 8th of November, the Nazi leadership gathered in the same place, the Bürgerbräukeller, a huge Munich beer hall, to mark the anniversary of Hitler's failed uprising of 1923. And every year, Hitler gave a long speech from the same platform at roughly the same time. The most predictable appointment in his calendar. Elser traveled to Munich and studied the hall like a problem to be solved, eating dinner there night after night, watching. And he found the weak point where only a carpenter would look. Not the doors, not the guards, the structure itself. Directly behind the platform stood a stone pillar holding up the balcony. A bomb hidden inside it would sit a few feet from Hitler as he spoke, and when it went off, it would bring the whole balcony down on him. He had found his spot. Now, he simply had to hollow out a stone column in a working beer hall without a single person noticing. What he did next is almost beyond belief. Beginning in August 1939, Elser came to the Bürgerbräukeller in the evenings, ordered a meal, and then hid inside as the hall closed for the night. Locked in, alone, in the dark. And there, night after night, By the light of a shielded flashlight in his teeth, he worked. He cut a hidden door into the wooden paneling, then hollowed out the stone and brick behind it, by hand, a few careful scrapes at a time. Every tap of a tool echoed in the empty hall. He swept up every scrap so no dust would show, and slipped out when the morning staff arrived. He did this for 35 nights. Into that cavity, he fitted a bomb of his own design, packed with explosives he had stolen a little at a time from the quarry and munitions works where he took jobs. The Nazis would call it a Höhlenmaschine, a hell machine. 2 clocks, wired together for redundancy, so that if one failed, the other would still fire. A carpenter had built a masterpiece. On the 6th of November, 2 nights before the ceremony, Elser set the timer. He wound it to fire 63 hours and 20 minutes later, 20 past 9 on the 8th. Then he returned one last time on the 7th, in the dead of night, and pressed his ear to the pillar. The clocks were running. The trap was armed. And then he did the hardest thing of all. He walked away, left it ticking, and turned for the Swiss border to get out of Germany before it went off. Everything now depended on one assumption, the assumption that had held true for years, that Adolf Hitler would stand at that platform at that hour and talk. And on almost any other night that decade, he would have. Elser had built everything on the most reliable habit of the most powerful man in Germany. But the 8th of November, 1939, was not almost any other night. Here is what Elser could not have known. Germany was now at war, and Hitler needed to be back in Berlin urgently to manage it. He planned to fly. And on the 8th of November, the weather over Munich closed in. Thick fog. His aircraft was grounded. So a decision was made. If he could not fly, he would take a special train back to Berlin that same night, and the train left at a fixed time. Which meant that Hitler's speech, the one part of the evening that was always long and unhurried, had to be cut short. He arrived earlier than usual. He spoke faster than usual. And instead of talking into the night, he finished, said his goodbyes, and walked out at around 7 minutes past 9. The other Nazi leaders filed out with him. At exactly 20 past 9, 13 minutes after Hitler left the room, Elser's bomb detonated. The pillar behind the platform disintegrated. The balcony crashed down onto the spot where Hitler had stood minutes before. Where his lectern had been, there was now a heap of rubble taller than a man. 8 people were killed. More than 60 were wounded. The bomb had worked flawlessly. It had done everything Elser designed it to do. It was simply 13 minutes too late. By the time the bomb went off, Elser was already almost at the Swiss border, at the town of Konstanz. And here, fate turned against him a second time. He was stopped by border guards, not because they suspected the bomb, but in a routine check before news of the explosion had even reached them. Then they searched his pockets. Inside, they found what a fleeing man should never have kept. Sketches of a fuse, notes on explosives, a postcard of the inside of the Burgerbraukeller itself, the evidence of exactly what he had done, carried in his own coat. When the news of the Munich blast came through, the pieces fit together, and Elser was handed to the Gestapo. They refused to believe a lone carpenter could have done this. Himmler was certain it was a British plot. They interrogated Elser for days, and slowly realized the impossible truth. No network, no foreign spies, no accomplices. Just one man who had decided by himself to try to stop a war. The Nazis did not execute Georg Elser. Not right away. And why they kept him alive is one of the strange, dark puzzles of this story. They held him more than 5 years in isolation, a special prisoner, first at Sachsenhausen, then Dachau. Some believe Hitler meant to keep him for a grand show trial after the war was won, proof of a foreign conspiracy. That victory never came. On the 9th of April, 1945, with Germany collapsing, with the war just weeks from over, with everything Elser had tried to prevent having come to pass and now ending in ruin, the order came down. Georg Elser was shot at Dachau. He was 42 years old. For decades, he was almost forgotten, even suspected, wrongly, of being a Nazi stooge. It took historians years to prove what he always said plainly, that he acted alone, that he did it to prevent the war, that he was exactly what he appeared to be. So go back to that pillar, the clock ticking in the dark, a carpenter who did everything right, who outthought the Gestapo, who built a flawless bomb, who placed it 3 feet from his target, and who was beaten by fog and a train schedule and 13 minutes. 13 minutes stood between the world we know and one we will never get to see. And one ordinary man very nearly closed that gap alone. I am filed under war. Next file. The aristocrats and officers who tried to kill Hitler 5 years later, with a briefcase, and failed by a matter of feet. Subscribe and you will not miss it.